All right, everyone, welcome to this week's presentation of DBA Fundamentals Group. This week it is Postgres versus SQL Server model differences with the awesome Taya Bali. Today is April 14th, 2026. Um, hope everybody is doing great. As you can tell, I have a slight cold, but it's all good because we're now in the presence of greatness. In the top right-hand corner of the screen, you'll see the three leaders of the DBA Fundamentals Group: Steve Cantrell, Shane O'Neill, and myself, Kevin Wilkie. Beside our names, you'll see the easiest ways to get hold of us on X. Um, that's probably the easiest way to get hold of any of us. Also, you can go to us via many social media platforms. The one that probably most of you found us on was Meetup. You'll see that one listed at the very top there. Go to it, you'll see all of our upcoming presentations, and I have a couple more to release here in the next few days, so all good there. Below that, you'll see our main webpage, dbafund.com. Please come to it for all of our past presentations and all of our upcoming presentations as well, so you can see them all in one place. Below that is one of our favorite places on the web, dbafundtube.com. It is our YouTube site. It has all of our past presentations. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel so that you'll know exactly when we've posted all of our latest presentations. Saying that today's will be recorded as well. So whenever we put it out there, be sure to like and subscribe it so you'll know when it's out there so you can watch all of its gloriousness again. And below that, you'll see us on, we've got our little social media platforms on X, Slack, and on LinkedIn as well. Some of our upcoming conferences I want to make sure everyone is aware of. If you don't already know, SQL Bits is coming up actually in next week. So if you're not already going to it, you need to go to it at some point in your life. It is a huge conference. You will learn a lot. Lots of fun speakers are there. They all want to be there. You need to be there if you want to learn all kinds of stuff about SQL Server and Postgres and you name it. Pretty much if it's out there, it's going to be talked about there. Also, one of my favorite events coming up very soon, May 2nd, is the Day of Data in Jacksonville. It is, as always, great fun. You'll learn a lot, and it's really close. If you're here in the States, it's just Jacksonville, Florida, because who doesn't want to go to Jacksonville, Florida in May? So that's always good. With that, please be sure to remember to turn off your video and mute yourself. I'll be doing the same here in just a minute when I turn it over to Tab. And be sure to type any questions you have into the chat. I'll be watching and turning them over to him as soon as it is ready for him to go. With that, quick little bio off Tab. But with that, over to you, my friend.
Okay, thank you very much. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen.
We do.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for joining. It's not easy, like working day, lunch hour, you probably want to get out, walk a little bit or do something, but you are here to listen to me and I do not take this lightly. I was talking to Kevin. I've been working hard for the last few days to get this ready. And Kevin, thank you for the opportunity. As I said, I do not take this as granted. So this logo was generated using some kind of AI. You see a small sign here, right? Here, that means I did not, copy paste, I created it. Just a side note. I am not going to read my about myself, but you want to take a note of my Blue Sky handle. I don't use Twitter anymore for personal reason. In LinkedIn also, you can find me at SQL Worldwide, or you can go to my website and send me an email from there. What is guaranteed is an answer from me. It's guaranteed. It might take a few days, but you will definitely get an answer. Sometime I do not know the answer of the question, but fortunately I know people, they are smarter than me, so I get the answer from them and then I'll give it to you, right? That works. I did that a few times. Now, before I get into this, a couple of things. Even if we do not finish all the slides, all the demos, do not get worried. I can share all this from you. In my personal experience, right, you're not going to learn too many technical things from a talk, right? Because it's a, it's 55-minute talk. We have question and answer. As long as you can grasp the idea, and then you get the material download, and this is nothing new. Like Postgres has good documentation. You can find all of this stuff there. So as long as you can grasp the idea, you should be good to go. So try to grab the idea instead of try to understand every technical details that I'm going to talk about. It's just hard, right? Because, and this is a vast subject, right? If you've been working with SQL Server like me for a long time, you know that you cannot talk about all the security stuff around SQL Server in a 55-minute talk. We all know that. So why did I suddenly start talking about Postgres, right? My whole life, I pretty much, not whole life, like when I came to this, my second career, I used to be a sailor, but put that aside, mostly on SQL Server, Microsoft Data Platform. So a short story, Q4 2024, I got email that we have this X number of Postgres instances that your team need to take care. I'm like, oh gosh, where is this coming from, right? Suddenly. And that time I didn't know anything. I worked in MongoDB, for a couple of years, so I know MongoDB pretty good. And so I'm like, what do I do now? And luckily the timing was good. I was going to Pass Summit in 2024, so I was already signed up, and then I saw there was a pre-con by Grant Fritchie, which David just mentioned. So I signed up for a pre-con on Postgres by Grant Fritchie, and then for that year, for some reason, I don't know, it's my luck, there was a Postgres conference happening in the same conference center in Seattle. And they said, if you signed up for Past Summit, you can also go to those sessions for the same money. I'm like, gosh, nice. So I pretty much spent, a full pre-con with Grant Fritchie, and the rest, 3 general session, I went to all the Postgres sessions as much as I could. So it's a 4-day kind of, packed stuff from Postgres. And so that kind of forced me to, that's why I said, if you're an accidental Postgres DBA like me, um, uh, you know, uh, uh, this is the right talk for you. So before I go into details, I just want you to, hopefully everybody has a cell phone or a browser. So if you can take this out, go to menti.com and then type in that number or scan the barcode. Just want to see how many of you are like me, accidental DBA, or you just hearing a lot of buzz about Postgres, so you want to learn, or some of you are using it a lot longer than me. If you can do that, that'll be nice. I'll just probably leave it like, probably like, I don't know, like 20 seconds, 30 seconds max, because we don't want to waste too much time. Okay, never used. Okay. Okay, so welcome. Accidental DBA. So 40% is like me, 43%. Okay. Okay, so my bucket is the longest, the biggest bucket so far. I don't know, what is that? 8 of 10 responded. What does that mean? Oh, means probably people opened it. They just, oh. Okay, so we have some veterans also. So if there are questions that I get stuck, I'm going to ask the people they been using it for a while so they can help us out. Awesome. Okay, so we have a good mix. I'm glad that accidental DBA has the largest bucket. So I'm just going to, another one, probably 20 seconds, and then we'll get back to the presentation. Oh, that's my favorite one. I know. I was thinking about that. That might get the. Okay. Perfect audience. Yeah, it's the same thing, just spelled without the space. So, oh my, oh. Okay. Okay, so I'm in a friendly territory today. And thank you, because like I said, I probably spend most of my time in SQL Server, even today with Azure SQL and other flavors of HyperScale and all that. So, okay, great. Okay, so we have some good ideas. So it's good. It's a good mix. There's MySQL here. I barely used it when I was in graduate school. Okay, awesome. So let's move on. Okay, because some of you are new, so let's just make sure we review a few basics. And as Kevin said, please, any question, I'm also watching the chat. Kevin is watching, put in the chat. My goal is not to finish the slides and demo. My goal is to get what you need, not what I want to finish, because I can all, I'm going to share everything with you, and it's nothing that I invented or anything, right? It's pretty much just relaying the information. So no big deal. Yeah. So if you have any question, comments, please put it in there, and we can take a pause. Uh, so what's authentication? It's like saying someone who I am is really I'm that person. Right? It can be a login, password, managed identity. I was in a talk with a couple of Microsoft people, and they envision like pretty soon the agents. You've been probably hearing about agents a lot, right? Uh, with the AI buzz, agents are going to be like humans. They're going to have their account. You'll be able to chat with them. Uh, you we probably have to very soon have to permission the agents within our database. So make them a part of DB data reader group in SQL Server. The agents are going to have IDs. So that's kind of the authentication. The next is the authorization. So what does the authorization means? It means I can come to your house, or if it's a palace, right? You go to visitor, right? You're a visitor in a palace, like in London when I was there with my family. So I can go into the palace. Of course, I cannot go into the king and queen's private area, right? Because I'm just a visitor. So based on my pass, they tell me I can go there, yeah, there and see these things, right? If it's a cleaning company, maybe they will have access to some different rooms that I do not have. And of course, the king and queen probably have access to everything I do not know. So that's kind of authorization, right? You can come into my I'll talk about more what's a cluster. You can come into my server in SQL Server term, but the authorization will dictate what can I do within the server, what databases I can touch, what database I can see, what I can do inside with the objects. I'm probably going to be talking a little bit faster just in the interest of time, but you can stop me if you think it is getting too fast. SQL Server, you all know, login, right? It's at a server level, and then you authenticate to the server. And we historically we've been creating user that is mapped to a login, and I know there are exceptions, right? We have contained user in Azure SQL database. We highly recommend not to have login and user mapping because your application should be contained within a single database, so when you fail over, everything is there. But keep that aside. But in general, a login and user is mapped and per database. Schema is common. It is common within SQL Server and also in Postgres. Uh, so it's kind of it's a container, and you can have all kind of objects within your schema. Now, why people use different schema, that can be a different discussion, based on your business needs. Some ISVs, or some SaaS application might have schema per clients, or they might even have separate databases. But kind of a security boundary, and you cannot have same kind of object with the same name. Like you cannot have two tables within the same schema with same name. Let's put it that way. And the last one is a super user. If you are coming from a SQL Server background, we all know what's ASA. If you're working with Linux, you know the root user. So super user, as soon as you deploy a Postgres cluster, and I know I'm saying cluster over and over, I'll define what it is, because there is a huge difference between SQL Server and Postgres cluster. But you get a super user. Super user means I have the key of everything. I can do whatever I want. I can create database. I can create new roles in Postgres. So it is a new login or new user. I can give permission to all over the world. So Manish says, looks like the DBO is the default schema in SQL Server. Do you have some default schema in Postgres? Yes, we do have a uh, default schema, and all my demo today, just to keep the focus on the security, we're going to be working on the default schema, Manish. So when you go to the demo, you'll see that. I'm not going to create a separate schema just to, keep the discussion within the time frame that we have. So hold on to that thought. If you do not see it after the demo, please stop me again. Okay. SQL Server roles. On the SQL Server slides, I'm going to go a little bit faster. As I saw in the survey, most of you, I think except one person, was MySQL. Rest of all of you are coming from a SQL Server background. So I'm just going to keep those mostly as a reference so you can compare and contrast just to save some time for us. We know in a SQL Server role, you have fixed server roles and database roles. We also can create custom roles. Or you call it like user-defined roles. At a server level, this is only became available in 2012, but database role was always there, user-defined database role. So you can, bundle set of permissions. You can add your users to that. They automatically inherit those, right? Application roles will be at a database level in SQL Server. I'm not going to go into that. It is a little bit complex if you want to use application role, but read on the books online if you need to. So before I go into Postgres roles, I need to talk about cluster. So in SQL Server, I'm not going to go into any details, but whenever we talk about a cluster, we're really talking about two different things. One is Windows Server failover cluster. And then once we build a Windows Server failover cluster, we create cluster objects like always in availability groups and all that on top of it. Windows Server failover cluster. You can also do failover cluster instance, which you still need the WSFC Windows Server failover cluster, and you build a failover cluster instance. So whenever cluster come to our head, we are thinking about multiple hosts bundled together, right? That's in a SQL Server term. In Postgres, it is not. It's totally different. So if you read the definition on the slide, it's saying a cluster is not a group of separate servers. So it's a single server, a Postgres engine, and a collection of databases that are all stored in a data directory. So what does that mean? Within a single host, I can have multiple Postgres cluster running, right? Similar to when I say that in a single host, I can have multiple SQL Server with something called named instance. In Postgres, I can also have that. I can have something similar, but then in this case, I'm not going to say that I have a default instance and I have two named instance. I'm going to say I have three Postgres cluster running on this host. Make sense? If not, put it in your question mark if I went too far. So if I have to put this in one line, a Postgres cluster is equals to one running Postgres server, collection of database it manages, all is stored in one directory. That's a Postgres cluster. Now we are coming to role. So a couple of things from this talk, if you want to take the clear concept, role, inheritance, object ownership, and there's a fourth thing if we get to it. So try to pay attention to these things because these are kind of like the major concept that I want you to get. I know in SQL Server, role is totally used differently. So here role means a login user and fixed server roles or user defined roles that we've been talking about. All these are called roles in Postgres term. So in Postgres, you can still say create user, but that's really an alias of create role. You can also say create groups, which is also an alias to create role. So everything is a role. And as I said here, a role can have login privilege, which means it's a user. And I can also have roles without login privilege. They are groups. Now, these groups doesn't have member. Just keep that in mind. You can assign this group, these roles to other roles, but these roles the groups will mainly be used for a set of permissions like DB data reader, right? And then I can assign it to other roles, so they will inherit those permissions. And I'm not going to go ahead. Inheritance also have some fine tuning that I can say do not inherit or inherit, and there's two different level, and I love that. If any of you have implemented in your current environment or in your career something called, we call this like just-in-time, right? JIT privilege. I think Postgres is very cleverly implemented this within the inheritance code. It's pretty neat. So when you see the demo, I'll talk more about it. So as I said, the roles that doesn't have login privilege, they are really we call it a group, but it's a bundle of privileges, whatever I want to, make this group with. Uh, so there are 3 points here, right? You grant it directly to the group, and then other roles is going to inherit it. And public will inherit or has some privileges by default. You can revoke those, but if you do not revoke those by default, they're going to get those. And we'll talk about a little bit more in the future slides. SQL Server historically is a two level. You come into the server means you get into the house with your login. And then if you have a user mapped to that login, you can get to the database. I know in Azure SQL is different. I can have a contained user and I can directly connect to the database without going through the master. But in Postgres, it's all unified. It's all role-based, as I said. It does handle both authentication and authorization. Both are done by the role. When you see the demo, you'll have some idea or better idea. I'm not going to talk about these 2 slides. It's mostly for information. I wanted to show you some compare and contrast of authentication between SQL Server and running on Windows versus running on Linux. So this is for a Windows slide, and I also have a slide for Linux. So please look at it in your, when I share this with you. And if you have any question, get back to me. I have not implemented all this. I'll be upfront with you. Most of my Postgres is running in Microsoft Azure. So it's a hosted service. So I even do not have the luxury of implementing some of this. But I've been watching other people's talk and reading the books. Hopefully, and I verified from some experts. These are what I'm saying here is correct. So with that, we'll go for a short demo, and then we'll come back. Any questions or comments? This will be a good time to put it in the chat.
No questions so far.
Okay. Before I do the demo, I want to show you. So I'm running a Windows laptop. I have Docker running here, and I'm using, there are many tools in Postgres. They're free ones. Postgres is heavily extension based. There's pgadmin and other tools that you can use. I know people use other tools that you can connect all kind of databases from the same UI, SQL Server, MySQL, Postgres, and other Cosmos and all that. What I'm going to use here is a tool called Visual Studio Code because I primarily work with Microsoft Data Platform. I can connect to a lot of stuff, and this is also extension based. It is multi-platform, very lightweight. You only enable the extension that you need. If you do not need, do not enable it. So I am using an extension that, as you can see here, maybe I can show you this here. This is there is another one with the similar symbol, so don't get confused. Make sure you look for that. This is published by Microsoft.com because there is one. I forgot the name. I disabled it. It's been there for a while, but there is no more updates or anything. This is pretty good as I mostly work in Azure PostgreSQL, as I told you. So this is the extension I'm going to use. And I have an instance running in the Docker container It doesn't have any database. Did I create this? I thought I cleaned everything. Let me. Okay, I created it again. It's okay. We'll delete and then recreate again for the sake of it. I put plenty of comments, probably a little bit more than I will normally put, even in my production code. I did this because I know that there'll be some people like me, accidental DBAs, and as we saw, some people have never used it. So I put enough comments that you should be able to take this and do it by yourself. And if you are doing this PostgreSQL, if you have a extension and if you have an Azure account, you actually can spin up from here also directly, just so you know. Okay, so let's see if we can. This tells you in the corner that what host and what database I'm connected to. So I'm going to connect myself to Postgres and see if I can drop this. I can do Shift Enter, or I can run this. That will run my the selected commands. Okay, it's being accessed by other users. There's 2 other sessions using the database. That's interesting. Okay, so should have done this earlier. Sorry. I did that. I think I was testing again. So hopefully it should say that the database doesn't exist anymore. Okay, good. So you're back. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to create a database empty. And then I'm going to switch my connection to this database. And some of this code are so I can just rerun over and over, but you really don't need, because this is a brand new one. Now, one thing I'm probably going ahead a little bit that I probably have future slides. In Postgres, roles or logins in SQL Server term are at a cluster level. And the authorization or the permissions that you assigned to those roles are at a database level. Hopefully that will make, I'll make it more clear as we go through this. So we're going to remove this role called dev login. And now I created the dev login here. Now, if you see here, we see this dev login. This is at a cluster level. Our cluster name is NYC Pass Tour. And I would never see this under this database, like as a user or anything. But anytime we assign any privilege to it, we have to assign the privilege at a database scope. We're just going to create another role called read login. And we're going to use this. So we just created 2 roles. We haven't done anything. By default, all privileges are granted, connect, temporary, execute all functions as procedures, and you can adjust those if you're not comfortable. And there are some uses it can do. Before version 15 of Postgres, by default, any user or any roles, could create objects. Not very good. So this changed in Postgres version 15. And you can read more about it. Now, I'm logged in as a super user Postgres. Now I'm going to switch myself to dev login, right? Before that, I'm just checking if I have this table. I drop it, and now I'm setting my role as a dev login. So now my context is dev login. If you remember, we just created the role. We did not give it any privilege, right? So now I have permission denied on public schema. So if you remember, Manish, you asked about default schema. So yes, public schema belongs in every database in Postgres that you create. So, and when I say set role none, means I'm going back and acting as a super user Postgres, and we can see that from here. Now my session user and current user are same. So the dev login didn't have create privilege, so we're going to give it to the dev login right now. And once we do this, I know we don't have the table, so I'm not just going to run that. Now I set myself as a dev login again, and I could create the table. In Postgres, whoever creates the object, they're the super user for that object. If you're going to work with Postgres, hard code this in your brain and keep that in mind. Otherwise, you're going to get into trouble. I did. So now this dev login has total control of this test table because it created it. Now we created another called read login, right? So we try to select, it cannot because nobody gave permission to read login to do anything. It just has those default permissions. Okay, so we go back. Now we're giving select on the read login and try again. Now it can read. Awesome. Now dev login is going to create a second table called test table 2. What do you think this is going to happen? Is it going to succeed or fail? Just think about it. If I set my role as a read login and try to read from test table 2. Anyone has any comment? You can put in the chat. Okay, Kevin said he's going to fail. I mean, he's the host. So you have to take it, right? You have no choice. Otherwise, he's going to. Okay. And Kevin's right. He's going to fail. Right? We're not trying to create object, Manish. We're just trying to read. Why? Because if we go up, we only gave the permission to testable, not testable 2. Even if we would have said that give permission to all the tables to select, like in SQL Server. If I'm a member of DB Data Reader, you give the permission now at 12:30. You create a new table at 12:35. I'll be able to read the table at 12:36. In Postgres, it doesn't work that way. If I'm giving you permission right now, unless there's something called default privilege, we're going to talk about it in demo 2. Unless I do that, you only get privilege to existing tables, not the one that are going to get created in future. This is a huge difference from SQL Server and Postgres. Keep that in your mind, because this is going to mess your brain if you do not get that part. So as you can see, this will get cumbersome, right? I will have more developers joining in. I will have more QA people, more business people. Now, every time they come in, I give them permission. They're only going to get permission to the current objects. Now we're going to create new objects. We're going to modify stuff. We have to give permission to them again. So this model, what I'm showing you, is not going to work in long term, right? So we look at another solution in demo 2. So let's go through the slides a little bit. And it is 12:34, so I'm going to go a little bit faster. So just, oh no, why did it switch back? Sorry, just have to switch my monitors again a little bit. Sorry, give me a minute. Okay, we're back. So every time you create a role, the roles has bunch of attributes that you can give. I'm not going to talk about those. I just put couple of important ones. The ones that are highlighted in this slide means the highlighted ones are default. The non-highlighted ones are not default. So if you just say create role X or create role your Matoyab, it is going to create a group or that role will not be able to log in. If you want it to be logged in or as a user, you have to explicitly say with login, otherwise it's no login. So I'm not going to read this, and I also put a URL, which is a page to the official documentation. Go and read about all the attributes of creating a role. This is important, right? Because this will be a primary job for us, right? As an administrator, right? To create roles and give permissions and all that. Uh, and then Postgres role scope, which I told you before, roles exist globally. And but when you connect to the database, it switch the context just within that database. So I'm giving it a permission to create table only in this database. So if I create a new database, that role doesn't have permission to create table in another database. Now, how to solve that? If we have time, I'll probably briefly touch it at the end, that how you can solve that problem too. If you're continuously, like if you are a SaaS provider, right? You have new clients coming in, you have creating new database every day. You cannot be doing this every time manually. SQL Server has something called public role. Uh, you can, grant, deny, and revoke permission. Public role, it's automatically everything is a member of public role, as if and everybody gets permission whatever is in the public role. So the best thing is not to mess around with it. Never give extra permission to public role unless you really want anybody coming into your server with a login to get access to it. Uh, Database also has a public role, same as that. So I'm not going to talk about that. So Postgres public role, we just saw that because I was using the public role. I showed you like what permissions it get by default, right? Uh, everybody, every role that we are creating, they automatically become a member of the public role. So just try to read the documentation, see what permissions they get today. It got a lot better with version 15, but you still want to read those, understand those, and if you do not want those, the last bullet point is revoke default grants to tighten security if that doesn't work for your business that you are in. Public schema is again the Manish's question, so I'm not going to read this. There is and I also mentioned the version 15, the major change which was asked from the community for a long time. Object ownership. Again, I'm going to repeat this. You must understand this, that object creator becomes the owner by default. You can change it post creation, but if you don't change it, this is a super user for that particular object. And this is very important in Postgres world. What default privilege it gets whenever you create a role, um, or yeah. So in database, it can connect, yeah, it can execute functions and procedures. So this can be another critical thing, right? You might not want every user to come in and run your functions and store procedures, right? In SQL Server, we don't do that, but here it does have that permission. So, depending on the business, right? If you're working with healthcare, finance or other stuff that heavily regulated, you might want to control that. So look at the default privilege again and adjust it based on, what you need. Default privilege. You have to use this. If you are working in a production environment, large scale, you have to use the default privilege because otherwise managing the permissions will be very cumbersome. So what does this mean? Like what do you mean by this default privilege and then alter default privilege, right? Maybe I should, yeah, let me keep here. One more thing. Other than the default permissions that a role gets, you now need to give more permissions, right, based on their role. Now, you can, as an object owner, whoever is creating it, I can say that, no, let me go back to look at this example, right? So I'm saying for admin role in public schema, you have select on tables to dev login. What will happen now? any new table created by admin role, dev login will automatically have select permission, even the future tables that I create, right? And this dev login can be a group also, right? That I can make other roles member of. And this is a way to create groups or group of permission, like we say, like DB data reader, DB data writer, and then you can assign those to other roles. So you are not managing per roles or per objects. I'm going to take a brief pause here. If this is not making sense, I want you to ask me questions. Because you must understand this concept if you have to manage a large scale enterprise, level Postgres database for security. Otherwise, if you do what I showed you in demo one, this is going to get too cumbersome and you're going to lose it. Yeah, it's just not practical. So to get this in your, a little bit more enforced, let's try to do some more demo where we were before. So we're going to create a role called dev group. And as you see, I said here, no login, right? Even though this is default, but I'm just mentioning it just so it's easier to understand. So we created something called dev group. And now I can grant privilege to this group role, right? So I'm giving it create on public schema. Before version 15, you didn't need that because automatically everybody's going to get create, but now you have to do it. And now, if you remember, we had a dev login. I'm making it a member of dev group. So now whatever I give to dev group, dev login is going to inherit this by default. And we're going to create another group, role called dev login 2. So I have a new developer and I'm going to make that also. So now dev group has 2 members, right? Dev login and dev login 2. Okay. We don't have that. So let's go to dev login 2. Why dev login 2 can create table even though we did not give it any explicit permission? Because we gave it to the dev group and then we added dev login 2 into the dev group. Now we have some QA people, or we have some people that they just need to read, right? We only need to give them read only group. So let's create a group called read only group. And we give the group select, and we make the read login member of the read only group. And we're going to create another one called read login 2. We make it a part of read only group. Okay, so now read login 2 can read because when I gave this permission, test table 3 already existed. And if we go to test table 3, you see its owner is dev login 2. So I'm not going to read this, but you can, read this in your own time. I'm going to set this to dev login. If I try to alter this table now, what is going to happen?
It will succeed.
See the owner we just saw here. So let's go back here. Sorry. Who is the owner of test table 3? Dev login 2. But I'm setting this as a dev login, not dev login 2. And I'm trying to alter the table. As I told you, the owner is the super user, whoever created it, right? So nobody else can do this. But now I have a group of developers, right? I do not want to give somebody permission to do this, someone do this, then it's just not practical. I want the whole dev group to do everything they need. So what is the best practice? Best practice is I'm going to make this table's owner as a dev group, and in future, I'm going to create everything. Does the super user become the owner of all the objects? The super user always have everything they need. Uh, uh, Technically, it's the object creator always the owner, but super user should be able to do stuff that the other than, because when a super user comes into the Postgres cluster, except the login privilege, everything else get checked, right? So I can even have super user that those cannot log in, but that's a little bit deeper than what I wanted to go. So now what I'm going to do, because I'm going to create this, pass this ownership to dev group. And now if I come here, right, I can see that I have this two table owner is a dev group. And now look at this, what I'm doing now. I'm doing a default privilege alter and saying that the read-only group should have select permission on all tables. And this means like not only the tables that exist today, the tables that I'm going to create in future. And how do we prove this? We're going to create a table 4 now. But we're going to create it as a dev group because that's the best practice going forward. All our objects should be owned by dev group. So anybody member of dev group should be able to do anything. And now if I go to the read login and I try to read from table 4, it should be able to read. So in summary, what I'm saying, you have to create a bunch of default something like this, default privileges, right? And or you have to create some roles, give it all the permissions you need, and then you alter the default privilege, and then everybody else in those groups should get permission. So your developers, your, I don't know, like, your admins, QA, business owners, or whatever they need. Now we have done all this in the DBA fun user group, right? We haven't done, and I said everything is scoped to this database. So what will happen if I create a new database now? Okay, I have not changed this. Okay, now I'm back as a super user, so I can create a database. And now if I go to the dev group, even though dev group has permission to create tables, but what happened now? Let me switch to our new database we just created. This is going to fail because I said the privileges is at a database level. So now I have to do all this, whatever I have done for database 1, I have to do all this for database 2. Is that practical? Probably not. So yeah, I have shown you, how to give it permission, the same thing, right? And I have wrote here 5 different options, how you can not do this for every database, but keep it same standard that your company established. I'm not going to read this, but when you get this deck or the demo code, you can read in your own time, right? There are definitely ways to go around. In SQL Server, I'm pretty sure all of you know what MSDB does, right? So if you want a setting in all your new databases in a instance, in a SQL Server instance, where do you make that change? Most likely in MSDB, if it's possible, right? Of course, we all probably have PostgreScripts after we deploy something, right? Via our pipeline or whatever way, right? We probably have a bunch of PostgreScripts that we always run. But if there is a setting you can do through MSDB, you can do it there. All new databases will take it from there. So there's something similar also available called a template database. You can do that. And there are other many different ways. I'm sure I have not listed everything, but these are some of the stuff that I can think of. Inheritance is a big thing in Postgres. So by default, if you make me a member of a group, and again, I'm using the term group loosely, which is also a role, right? A role member of a role doesn't sound good. So I'm just saying if you make a user a member of a group, it automatically inherits everything. But I can also not do that if I don't want to. And how does that work, right? So let's look at that. I'm not sure if I have all the objects. So let me go to group 2 because I skipped. Yeah, I skipped this. I think this is going to bite me again. So let me just run this quickly. Just creating a table so I can show you the other stuff. Oh, I created the wrong database. Let's see if I can. So I'm creating a role called parent role, no login. And then I'm creating 2 more roles with no login. But look at this one called inherit. And this one I put here no inherit. So this is a default behavior is inherit. Now I'm granting parent role to both. Just remember, one is the inherit, one is no inherit. And you can see this, right? Role inherit is false here. And now I'm giving it to the parent role, select all tables. So definitely if we set it to the role inherit, I think it's pretty obvious. It should be able to read. No worries. If I do it here, it should fail because this did not inherit by default, right? So how can this role, child role no inherit, can read from the test table 5 if it needs to? Because we made it a member of the parent role, right? I can set it to parent role temporarily. I can do my select or whatever work I need to do, and then I can get out of it. That's why I said it is, it's impressive. I like it. This is similar to something we call just-in-time privilege, right? I elevated myself for the work that I need to, and then I come back. And I'm sure there are probably custom solutions if you really want to audit this. I do not know if there is extension that will do, but I'm sure you can, you can write something that's going to audit every time you do this, right? You elevate yourself. Uh, these are cleanup. I'm not going to run this to save you. You don't need to see those. So okay, I'm again sorry. It's just I have a bunch of windows and I'm trying to. Okay, good. We're back. So I just put a summary of your lesson learned. I'm not going to read this. but if you really have to implement this in a large scale, you have to do some thinking really before you go to production. Uh, Unique sets of privilege, like I said, and create groups and default privileges. So keep these things in mind, play with those in a sandbox, try to really understand. Copilot can help you, if you use other LLMs, they can also help you spit out a couple of examples that you can play. I do that all the time nowadays. But I'm not writing production code directly to put it there. Uh, but you can get your concepts. And uh, there are a couple of talks, and most of these are from Ryan Booz. He used to work in uh, Redgate for a while. Uh, I also, I'm not getting any commission or anything. But if you're new, this is a book that I have two copies. One was I got free at Past Summit in 2024, but then they just put out a newer version. I just ordered it from Amazon. This one PDF is available uh, online. You can, it's not pirated copy. Redgate is sponsored, but I love to get a book in my hand. It's a nice book for someone like me who is accidental PostgreSQL. A very nice book. I would highly recommend. You can go to Amazon and search for Grant Fritchie and Ryan Bose. So there's a couple of URLs. All of these has URL behind the scenes, so you can click those and read. And I am going to, as I told Kevin, I'm going to save last 3 minutes for question and answer. So, and my contact again. So I know I went a little bit faster because it's a lunch hour meeting, and I definitely want to respect your time. If you have meetings and all that, you get a little bit of 2 minute breathing room to switch context. Other than that, I can also stay here after 1 p.m. I have all the time that all of you need. So any questions, comments that I can answer. But if you have to go, I wouldn't take any offense. Thank you very much for choosing to spend time for listening to me. And Kevin, thank you again for the opportunity.
Oh, my pleasure, Tab. All right, so with that, I do want to thank you all for coming today. As Tab said, it's always a privilege to meet with y'all, give you great ideas. Hopefully, you can use some of these in your future endeavors. If you have any questions, be sure to type them away. I do want to remind everyone, I am going to be putting out a few new presentations um, coming up soon. The only one we have in our list coming up pretty soon is in September with optimized locking in SQL Server 2025 internals, contention, and concurrency with Torsten Straub. Be sure to come to that and watch out for any of our new presentations that I'll be putting on the list there soon. So with that, looks like everyone has put in all the questions they have. So unless you have any more thoughts, it's time for us to go.
Yeah, no, not thoughts. It's a very introductory session. That was my goal, and I'm glad on the survey I saw a bunch of, some people never used it, and some people are like me. I call myself accidental PostgreSQL. So I think it was the right audience, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity. And thanks, folks, for coming in and listening to me. So,
All right. So with that, thank you all very much. Have a great day, and we'll talk at you again soon.